watches?
No.
Well, some of you do and some of you don't. Well, some of you do and some of you don't. Well, some of you do and some of you don't. Well, some of you do and some of you
Hey, folks. How y'all doing this Sunday evening? We are going to do a part 2 of what we did last week with the government psyops, and this is, I guess, what you could call it. We're going deep on deep state, and Monica took the night off, but I have Joe Breezy and Jason McLean with me tonight. And so this is going to get real interesting, folks. This stuff that they're doing and have done in the past and are continuing to do is, it blows me away. But anyway, we're going to get them up here. We're going to get this thing started. I apologize for being late. I was over on Eddie and Jen's, and somebody brought up an orb I was looking at. And they're going to send it to us, and we're going to break it down. So it could be real interesting. Anyway, let's get them up here. Hello, Jason. Hello, Breezy.
What up? So I know the original concept was sort of, to do the follow-up was a sort of like, how do we break programming?
Right.
Concept. But again, Breezy wasn't here last week. Do you want to go through a quick history of what, a quick recap of what we discussed?
That's a show in itself. We discussed a lot.
Well, you could, okay, so all right, I'll do it since he's clearly forgotten. So we went through just a very quick history of I can never remember the Edward Bernays, father of public relations, and sort of cursory understanding of MK Ultra, but then also how that works into psychological operations today using these things, right?
And we also touched on what's his face, the other guy.
Yeah, you're asking me names. That's a bad idea.
The other guy.
Yeah, but essentially, again, one of the main names behind MK Ultra, but again, it's about how that all that evolved into psychological manipulation through algorithms, news, things like that. So that's where we sit. And the question that was asked was, well, how do we move beyond that? How do we recognize it? How do we sort of heal from that? So that was what happened last week. So Tex, that's what happened on our previous episode. Now for tonight's episode.
So Breezy, to start out, I'd like to get your take on, because one thing we did touch on last week was the shocking experiments and the gun experiment, okay, where and the one with the shocking thing, it's where they put one guy in that's the shockee and the other guy in the room that's a shocker, and they have a two-way mirror, and the shocker is actually the subject of study, not the guy being shocked, because he's not really being shocked.
Yeah, he's the actor.
And what was crazy was this experiment has been repeated numerous times with the exact same results. 67% of people went all the way to a deadly shock, and it was listed, and it was plainly stated on their panel. Danger could cause death, right? And the only factor in the whole situation was they weren't under threat or anything to push the buttons or anything. All it was, they had they had a directive in front of them. Says if they get the question wrong, buzz them. Move it up a level. If they get it wrong, buzz them. And there was a guy in a lab coat that they didn't know from Adam. Okay, standing next to him, going, well, it says, you got to push the button. You got to move it up a level. You got to push the button. 67% of the people went all the way up to killing the person in the next room. Even when they acted like they weren't moving anymore and they were passed out on the table or dead, they were still shocking them just because this guy told them to. And that was the directive that they were given. No other threat at all. And they were asked, why did you do this? Well, he told me to. He told me I had to.
Right.
Now 100% of the people went up to 250, I think it was.
Yeah.
Now in the gun experiment, it was where what they did was they hypnotized people. They were trying to figure out if they could hypnotize people to kill people. Okay. Which you cannot hypnotize somebody and make them do something against their will. You cannot do it. Okay. That's been proven. But what they do is they hypnotize people to think they're in a situation where pulling the trigger is their only or best option. Okay. 100% of the people pulled the trigger to kill the subject. That shit is frightening. Okay. There was J. Edgar Hoover and this other guy.
The other guy.
The other guy.
I wish I could remember him. I'm going to have to go back and figure out his name here in a minute. They concocted a plan. Yes, Donnie, Tex said doo-doo. And
I was wondering who was going to bring that one up.
They concocted this plan to where they could capture a Russian U-boat captain and hypnotize him to where he would go back and blow up the fleet within. Now, nobody knows if they ever did this. Okay. Now, as far as reports go, but I mean, if that had happened, I don't know that we would have ever heard about it. That would have been something that, because Russians blowing up their own, no. Yeah. That didn't happen because they were so committed to Mother Russia, right? They would never do that. And we know that something like that would have absolutely demoralized the Russian soldiers.
Yeah, it would have scarred the reputation on them.
Exactly. So we can't say that it did or didn't happen, but we know it was a plan that they were talking about. So yeah, that leads into, and like Jason was saying, Bernice is he's the guy that came up with public relations as a term. He's the guy that changed the name from the War Department to the Defense Department, and a lot of other things.
He really was sort of the leading master he really created propaganda to a way. And again, it's insane when you look at how much he affected our culture. Even the phrase breakfast is the most important meal of the day. That's his. Right. He created that. There's a lot of
things. Sell more pork.
Yeah, to sell bacon. And he viewed his entire job as one long experiment on how to manipulate human understanding to get the results that you want, right? He was in advertising, and politics, and essentially what a lot of people have pointed out is that and just not him, but he's the father of this whole line of thinking. Is it's about creating a reality in which people do what you want them to do because they believe it's in their best interest. It is a form of hypnosis. It's just not the hypnosis that we think of.
Right.
And to take that one step further, right? MK Ultra again. We talk about MK. There was over 120 programs. We have no idea what the vast majority of those programs actually were or did. Not one. We only have a handful of paperwork on a few of them. But what we do know is everyone who was involved went back again. All these psychologists and psychiatrists went back to their universities. They had all that material. It was secret away. Everyone's like, "Oh, it was all destroyed." No, it wasn't. Absolutely not. It's come to life with these things. This is how we know programmers have figured out how to do things so that games are addictive, right? There was a comment that said, "Oh, kids have no attention span today," which is why they're on TikTok. It's like, no, TikTok and again other algorithmic social media is the reason why they don't have attention spans. They were in fact this was a it's very clearly planned psychological operations. TikTok isn't just a platform. It has nothing to do with free speech. It's since text. Oh well, I guess it's just the two of us building castles in the sky. Just the two of us, you and
I.
But rather than what everyone's like, oh no, this is all about a free speech. No, it's not. TikTok has nothing to do with free speech. It is Chinese spyware and psychological operations because they can change the algorithm and you get hold on real quick. Wrong one. It moves every time I try and click on it. Did we lose Tex Nemovir? Did we actually lose him? I don't think so. Not a loss. Anyway, Donnie commends you on your baritone there. So, it's they can control what you see, right? And if they want to, they just tweak things a little bit, and all of a sudden you're seeing feeds. It's not TikTok. And again, the problem is everything you say about TikTok, you can say about Facebook or Instagram or X or any of it, right? In fact, Elon Musk he's like, hey, look at all the stuff that's going on here. We had that was the whole point of the Twitter files it was exposing that the FBI and the White House were determining who won, who lost, who got seen, who didn't get seen, who got downgraded, who got shadow banned, who got promoted. That it was essentially it was essentially acting on behalf of the government. So that was sort of where we left things last week. So the question becomes, MK Ultra, Nemovir, MK Ultra just grabbed Tex. So hold on, freaky censorship. Here's the thing. Since it's a little hard to know exactly where you're referring, getting rid of TikTok isn't censorship. TikTok is censorship. Because what it is, even if it allows a lot of different viewpoints on it, it twists and pushes differing thoughts. And by the way, a lot of people, most of these entire platforms are fake. They're fake, straight out. The people who are a lot of the comments, it's dead internet theory. Most of these are not real people that you're interacting with. I don't care what platform you're on. Some of them are businesses, some of them are governments, government intelligence agencies, and what they're doing is they're manipulating the data by pushing out concepts and thoughts and interacting with people. So some of it's AI, but mostly it's a human being overseeing like hundreds of fake bot accounts that are pushing thoughts out there. So the question becomes, now that Tex has returned, how do we break free of this, right? And how do we kind of get beyond Psyops? And I'd sent something to Tex. Actually, it's the guy the video that Tech Saw that spawned all this was linked to last week. Well, I found another video of him, of the guy who was being interviewed, and Patrick Davidson to text, so he can put that in the
Chase Hughes.
below. Yeah, Chase Hughes. Thank you. What's funny is I was listening to him like it was literally everything I was going to say.
Yeah,
by and large, but his was more about how to recognize the psyop. The main thing for me on all of this, right, is the big part has actually already happened, which is you have to know that you're being lied to. Once you understand, oh, hold on, I'm not being given real information from people. I am being that these are all narratives that are being fed, and these are not necessarily people I should trust. That's your first big step anyway, right? Once you see it, you don't unsee it. Now from there, there's obviously other steps, but the main question is, are you experiencing emotional manipulation, right? Because again, unlike the hardcore, actual MK Ultra programming sort of situations, you're not being strapped down to a table and fed drugs and shot up and electrocuted and whatever else, have a dead cat smacked you in the face or something, whatever they do to do it. But what they do, and this is, again, I've last couple of years, Tex knows on the back, I've been working with some people who created a really interesting light and sound therapy headset, and I'm a huge fan of it. One of the things they talk about is how easily manipulated you are when you're in a high stress.
That shit scares me, though.
Yeah, what? Light and sound therapy?
Yes.
Well, if it's done by the right people, then you're fine. Because
okay, that goes back to who you trust on.
Yeah,
yeah,
who's
exactly.
making it,
right.
Yeah,
so,
and I don't.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Well, but, yeah. I mean, when you boil it down to the end of the pot, it really comes down to, the ultimate cure of it. Well, I guess what you could consider a cure would just to be unplugged. Unplug away from any media, social media. Go outside. Go look at the trees. Talk to the trees. Hang out there, talk to your fellow neighbor, but then you're still susceptible to manipulation from people that just straight up lie. Oh, did you hear about old boy down the road? Blah blah blah. So right. It still comes down to that factor. But if you really want to get away from the entire programming thing and manipulation, then it's to stay away from broadcasts. They call it television programming for a reason. It's a television program, because it's programming you.
Donnie asks, what does the MK and MK Ultra stand for? Mortal Kombat? No, Donnie, but if we told you, we'd have to kill you. So yeah, the first step is kind of unplug for a little bit, like you said, kind of get out from it. But the reason unplugging works is because, and this is the thing they can do, right? Again, referring back to the whole TikTok, the 7-second algorithm thing that they were pushing.
Yeah.
Every time you swipe up, you get a dopamine hit. It's programming the brain for shorter and shorter attention spans. That's
we're becoming goldfish.
Yes, but the main thing they can do, and they've done for decades, and they've realized they can do this, is if they keep you in a fear state or a stress state, then you are more susceptible. That's the thing, right? It's about the fear state. Once you understand that you're being lied to, once you understand that it's, again, there's manipulation, then all you have to do is just say, okay, hold on, what are they really trying? When you look for emotionally loaded language and understand if it's trying to make you, it's every phishing scam you've ever seen, right? You have to punch this button right now. You have to log in right now, or you're going to lose access to everything you've ever seen and loved. Same thing in the news. This common household product will probably kill you and everyone that you know. Film at 11, right? But it's everything's to kill you. Everything you have to. And it's this constant fear state, and it's a continual stream. There, in many ways, modern society engineers consistent existential dread that didn't even exist for people who had to fight for their entire existence 100 years ago, right?
Right.
Like the stresses of things, even well, okay, about 100 years ago now. I just realized is you're in the middle of World War I. Let's say 140 years ago, right? If you're out living your life, there was stress, but it was acute stress that was temporary, right? It was a fight, or you had, there was something that you could do. You've done it, and the stress was short, but it was acute, but it was short. You draw that stress out, that same kind of stress over decades of someone's life. It's Chinese water torture, right? I throw a bucket of water at a rock and nothing's going to happen. If I drip water on that rock for a couple decades, it's going to go right through the rock. It's the same concept. So you create overly emotional states. You create outlets that allows you to manipulate what everyone sees. You put the most hysterical person on the news, right? And it's, oh, look at how crazy this person is. Is anyone who's even remotely associated with this person must be insane. And boom, you're done, right?
Yeah.
Then the entire perspective is gone. It's
right.
The key is once you understand that you're being lied to, like that's the biggest problem is most people will never accept that they're being lied to. It's literally the Matrix, right? Their brains can't comprehend that they've been lied to by
they've
people.
been fooled. Yeah. It's easier to lie to somebody than to convince somebody that they've been lied to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good point. But the thing about it is, and here's the rub. Jason, you were talking about they want you in a fight or flight state, basically all the time. Okay. Mm-hmm. But once you figure that out, part of the possibly part of the deprogramming is once you figure this out, right? But once you figure it out, you were definitely in that fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
Because that just made you more, more paranoid, more, anxious about everything going on. So they still have you in that. They went, no matter how it goes, they can manipulate you, because even if you're in that high state of anxiety, like they want you, it doesn't matter if you think you're figuring them out. I guarantee you there's ways there's getting to you.
Yeah.
On the backside of that. So we're not going to completely deprogram. We're not.
So let me push back on that. Let me push back on that a little bit. Because you're not wrong, right? I don't think you're inherently wrong. In fact, I think we see that with a lot of.
Okay, so is this going to be one of those? I'm not going to tell you you're not wrong, but I'm going to tell you why I'm right. Situation.
Yes, 100%. Because that's what you set me up for, right? It's you wouldn't bring me on the channel if that wasn't for if you didn't want that to happen.
That is true. That is very true.
So again, you're not wrong, and we see that with a lot of these with a lot of fringe groups where they just reject everything that's ever happened in reality, right? And they're looking, and you get lost in looking for the secret history of everything. Tartaria is a great example of this, where essentially you have people who believe that their grandfathers and great grandfathers, all of them, all of human history, rewrote everything about 120 years ago and lied to everybody, to all of their children, about the way the world worked. They rewrote every single document, redid every painting, every photograph ever taken, all of it, right? It's like
the Great Reset.
Yeah. Right. That's what they're going to try and make that happen. Well, let me finish, and we'll come back to Q here. So you have people who once you find out you're lied to, you reject everything, you go the other way. That's also useful, right? Again, what's my one conspiracy theory is that most conspiracy theories are actually perpetuated by the government, if not created by the government, to keep people who would actually look for the things that are inconsistent, to keep them distracted from the things that are basically right out there in the public. Had a conversation yesterday with a friend of mine, and I was talking about the algorithms, AI, and he's like, so how can you say the government's incompetent, but then also that they can do all these things and manipulate data? And the thing I had to point out is because the data manipulation is happening in public. Like the worst stuff actually happens in broad daylight. Now, news media may not talk about it because, again, they're kind of in on it, but it's public. Yeah, I know, kind of. Yeah, no, they are. We know that. Again, Operation Mockingbird, all of that. But it's the worst stuff is actually happening in public. They're having speeches, they're having meetings about it, and it's just nobody actually reports on it or puts it within that context. So it's not some deep, dark, secret conspiratorial thing. You're looking for the James Bond stuff, and you really just need to be going to the meetings and hearing them actually say it out loud, right? To Q, yeah, I'm sorry. No, Q's clearly a Fed psyop. I'll say it.
Breezy, 100%. Do you
100%.
know what the Q is?
No Q.
I am shocked, Breezy. I'm kind of. I was.
I mean, if you spit it, I might be like, oh yeah, but no, right off the bat, no.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the Urban Dictionary Plan Q. Okay.
Yeah. Which, by the way, Urban Dictionary again. Whatever. Continue though.
So it's the French version of Friends with Benefits, according to the according to the Urban Dictionary.
I know it very well. No.
And it's weird because if you look up Plan Q, okay, that's the kind of stuff you get. There's nothing out there about what we're referring to.
Okay. Oh, okay. So yeah. So it's like
Jason, could you give us a rundown on the Plan Q real quick? Just real quick.
Well, yeah, again, there's like everything else, there's 50 different branches of it.
Right.
The main idea, and really sprung up under during the part of it actually happened. The earlier stuff actually happened under Biden, but it really blew up under Trump. It was this idea that there were these secret government officials who were deeply embedded, and they knew the truth, and they were actually working for us. And there were actually some really interesting information drops that turned out to be accurate. So a lot of people bit hook, line, and sinker, which is what you do in most psyops anyway, right? You wrap the line inside of a truth. And so that's where you got a lot of people going off on actors being in politicians being secretly kidnapped and prosecuted in Gitmo and replaced with actors who are either wearing masks, or you saw people walking around with supposed ankle bracelets in very edited clips, that kind of thing. It was very clearly a psyop for anyone who knows how that stuff operates. And it was to distract people who may actually be willing to go out and do something, do protesting, right?
Right.
Go and actually get signatures for, organize in the street to say, oh, okay, well, there's this super secret group that's running around doing things, right? And it was very clearly something, just like we have there's a lot of groups, both left and right, that are completely fake, right? That's the thing we need to understand. So many groups, regardless of political spectrum, are completely fake. They were created to give the appearance of legitimacy, or it's called astroturfing, right? Because we talk about the grassroots movements. An astroturf movement is one that is organized and funded by a government or even a multinational corporation, though there's a lot of gray area between that too. And essentially what you do is that money is funneled to one group, and that group funnels money to another group. And then that group is putting out messaging and doing protests and whatnot, right? So it looks like, oh, here's the, people for the ethical treatment of kitty cats. And they're like, we're funded by activists and whatever. And then you find, well, okay, well, who's funding them? And it's, well, people who love puppy dogs and kitty cats. Cool. Well, who's funding you? And they're like, we're not going to tell you. Because they're funded by these multinational corporations or intelligent or other intelligence operations, right? Because again, once you get to a certain point, it's those lines blur real hard.
Right.
A great example of this, actually, Jillian Michaels, of all people, did this release something, I think it was yesterday or Friday night. And she was talking about this group that did, it's like they have 17,000 signatures from doctors against RFK being made head of the FDA. And so she looked at it and she says, well, first of all, the signatures themselves are entirely in doubt because there's no vetting. I signed in twice and gave fake aliases and fake addresses, and they took all of it. But then she's like, okay, well, so who's this organization? She did the tree thing that I just told you, right? It's like, well, this is promoted by this group. This group is funded by this group. And you can see, and you can see their primary donors are this other group over here. You hop over to that group. Well, who funds that group? They're not telling you. It's a way of laundering money in creating the appearance of a organic grassroots organization when it's really an astroturfed organization. And a lot of
ideologies.
Exactly. So again, and we saw that with the we talked about this, I think, before on a different show about like CIA and modern art, right? They did the same thing. The CIA sponsored modern art because it was artwork was one of the front lines against the fight against the Russians from a societal perspective. But the CIA couldn't give money directly to the artists. What they did was, to make it look organic, is they created this fund over here, and that's where the dark money was. But then they would fund this newspaper or this magazine. This magazine would then go and fund this other thing over here. So now there's enough levels that most people aren't going to make that connection. Right.
Yeah. Same with CIA in Hollywood. Same concept. Yeah.
Exactly. It's the same thing. It's all the same process. So once you kind of understand, okay, hold on, there's lying going on, and that the extreme is often, or the extreme opposite is often also a manipulation, right? It's a heat sink. I was reading somebody who and this is something I've said for years now too. So it's interesting when you start seeing other people, say things you said. But a lot of these political groups were heat sinks. It was just a place to put people so that they thought they were actually resisting, the primary thought, but at the same time they weren't, right? It's like, hey, here's Trump, or here's Clinton. There we go. Clinton and Bush, they're so radically different. And Obama's very different. But you look at their policies, they're all continuing along the exact same trajectory.
Yes.
Obama didn't change any of Bush's, particularly war policies, but any of the major policies, he didn't change those. He actually upped them. He took more powers. It's like, well, hold on. If all three of these people are supposedly so radically different from each other with differing opinions and different, then why did they all do the same thing? Because the claimed ideologies were always a heat sink. You have the liberals over here. You have the conservatives over here. You have the Greenpeace people over here. You got the dope smoking hippies over here. And they all think that they're fighting their own little ideological battles. But the people at the top, they're all playing the same game. They tell you what you want to hear. I'm fighting for you. People who like the ethical treatment of kitty cats. And then they vote to gas kitty cats. Right? It's like, well, I'm sorry. It was part of a bill that was about funding, it
had other stuff in the bill that we really needed.
Yeah.
That was,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's how this game has been played for decades. A great question to say, look, anytime you are absolutely supposed to hate anyone from from the mainstream, the question needs to become, okay, maybe that should be your warning sign, right? That maybe there's something going on here. Look at the people you have to hate more than anything else. Right? It's like, Hollywood, the communist scare in the 50s. Just asking again, names off the top of my head is a terrible idea. But you had the Red Scare in the 50s, and you had these hearings. It's like, that's supposed to be the worst thing that's ever happened in human history. Why was it the worst thing that ever happened in human history? Exactly. Right. And you realize it's so hyped up. It's so overplayed because we're seeing it. Yuri Bezmenov told us, yes, there are CCP operatives in your country, and they're undermining your entire base philosophy. It's like, that's it. That's the entire point. It's like, the reason you're supposed to hate them was so that it's like, oh no, there's no socialists anywhere. And while the socialists are spinning your wheels, manipulating the data, manipulating your culture. That's it. So it's, you gotta look like, well, if everyone's saying the same thing, particularly in the mainstream captured media outlets and politicians, anytime all the politicians say the same thing, that's your red flag. Gotcha. Just straight up. And again, things like fear states, things where you're only given two options. It's this, or your entire family is going to be eaten by alligators, right? McCarthy.
Yeah, well,
thank you.
But not only that, but it's even gotten to the point where your only two options is fear or fear. Like, back in the Gap, I remember when those when the pharmaceutical commercials started coming out, and it's like, oh, you got shingles or you got hives. Well, take Xantacloth, and your side effects might be bleeding from the liver and blah, 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 or even, death and yada, yada, yada. So it's a lose-lose impossible task. You either fear one thing or you fear the other. Just pick which fear you'd rather be more comfortable with, and that leaves you with literally a no out, and conditions your mindset into, a doom factor. So regardless of, and then that translates in your brain into, everything is screwed. Like, that could go into rent. What do I do? Go into, go into debt paying my rent, or go into debt paying my electricity, or blah, blah, blah. So you get used to that, that transient state of fear, and you're constantly in it. So when you put somebody in that, then you put somebody into a circumstance where they have nothing to lose, and they don't care if they lose. It conditions you.
Well, and this is the broader theme here. Back to the whole point of, you can't be hypnotized to do something you wouldn't normally do, right? Like, I can't be hypnotized into walking up to Tex and stabbing him, right? Not that I'm opposed to doing that. I'm just saying I couldn't be hypnotized into doing that if I didn't want to. But I could be hypnotized into believing there was a situation where that was my best option, because Tex was a threat to my friends, my family, my life, my dog,
Well, then just a quick question. Well, then how do you feel about whenever, like, and I know this is mostly for entertainment purposes, because they did it back in the day, and I always thought it was really stupid. But how they, when they do like public hypnotization or hypnotizing people, and they're like thinking that you're a chicken, and then you got all the people on the stage walking around clucking. Like, it wasn't like it's in your best interest to be a chicken. you're actually being hypnotized into thinking you are.
But
I'm just
Yeah.
wondering how you feel about that.
well,
so-
but the
sorry.
difference is, I think, is that you're not being hypnotized to go against your core values. You're not putting yourself in danger, that type of thing.
Laying
Okay.
an egg is in danger to me.
Not the Tex, sir. Not the Tex.
But
Yeah.
Well, so again, you're not being hypnotized into believing you're a chicken. You're being hypnotized into pretending that you're a chicken. That's really all it is, right?
See,
so
I think it's deeper than that. I think that whole thing was a psyop.
I think a lot of it is.
For them to make people believe, on Jerry Springer or whatever, that hypnotization is a very real and very quick and immediate thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So real quick, I need to break Tex's heart here for a second. Tex, I need you to gird your loins. Jerry Springer was faked. All of it was fake.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yes.
No.
I'm sorry. Yes, it's
Not
wrestling is still real, Tex. Wrestling is still real. It's okay. It's okay. But Jerry Springer was faked. All of it. That's why when you had these crazy things and you're like, how did this white guy with a white woman not know that the black child was not his? Because it was faked, right? The whole thing. Okay, I can't say how or why, but do you remember the show Cheaters?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that was filmed here in Dallas. I actually know people who were part of the production. The vast majority of that show was faked. There were real instances. In fact, the original host got stabbed on Joe Pool Lake.
Yeah.
But yeah, so while there were a few real events, particularly the crazier ones, all of them were staged, right? So yeah, so that's the whole thing. Most of these things are fake.
Yeah, ratings.
Like
the real world. Real world was the fakest real world ever. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a little story. We had went up to I think it was Nashville, it was Nashville, and we walked into our hotel, right? And we're at the hotel bar, and this bunch of people walk into the front door, the camera crew and a couple. And it was, what was it show? 90 Day Fiance or something like that. Okay.
Jen would know. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it was one of those shows, right? And they made the couple enter the hotel like 4 times, right? saying things different ways. And that's supposed to be reality. That's just an example. It's scripted, people.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Finding Bigfoot. Totally. It's scripted.
Yes.
Okay. You got 20. You got a whole camera crew out there with you.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Well, okay. Only because I know a little bit about the insight on that one. There were things that producers tried to do in the first season that the cast said, "You fake this stuff, we're gone."
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
So it was scripted, but it was never. They never faked any evidence. But they were, again, it's a show. All of these things are television shows. But back to Breezy's point, right, about these sort of hypnotist shows that they would do, and
right.
Yeah, he's correct. Most of those are absolutely faked, right? But but can people be hypnotized to do silly things? Yes, some people can, but there's a difference between being hypnotized into pretending to be a chicken and then going on a mass murdering rampage or eating pineapple on pizza. That one is for Donnie.
It just shows you how I guess gullible the programming has gotten to us, because talking about this sort of thing like Tex was talking about, it's whenever it's like someone take any show, Pawn Stars or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, and someone goes and knocks on the door, and then all of a sudden there's a camera behind the guy inside the house,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they're like, oh yeah, blah blah blah, and your mind doesn't even fluctuate to the point to where you're like, oh, I just saw a camera guy inside the house, so obviously they already went through the, hey, we're gonna come in, we're gonna, you know, script it out, and you know, you're so programmed to it that you instantly go, oh, that's the first time he's seen her, you know, blah blah blah, you know. But no, it's you know, once you see past that fourth wall, I guess you could say, you know, you start seeing all these little tidbits.
The reason you cry in movies, the reason you laugh in movies, is because it's going through. You're visualizing it, you're seeing it. It actually bypasses your reason center and goes directly to the primal aspects of your brain.
Or because I've been drinking.
Well, that too, right? I mean, that's a given, right? But specifically, the reason that works is because it's actually bypassing your rational centers. It's going, because again, think about it. If the bushes are moving, there's a tiger, your body needs to react real fast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, hypnotism is real. I'm with JoJo on this. I will never allow myself to be hypnotized.
No.
Period.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Yeah, like I said, hypnotism
JoJo,
is a real
for some reason, I can see you on the StreamYard side of things, but nobody's seeing you chat in the YouTube side of things. It's really strange. And I'm not seeing you on the YouTube side of things either, which is really weird. But I can see you on the StreamYard side.
So following up, Donnie's asking, why does he cry at K-pop then? Well, because K-pop touches your soul, Donnie. It touches your soul. But the point is, the reason you're watching a show, you're like, oh, well, this must be a real transaction. It's a lot of that's bypassing, because it's visual. It's bypassing that rational center. But again, once you see something, you can't unsee it. Once you know that this is clearly scripted, once you know that if it's happening on a show, producers planned this out. Even if they're not working off of a script, they know someone's coming in. Producers have told them this thing's happening. And so they're working that way. They probably even take multiple takes and they're editing them together to get what they want, right?
So on a serious note about the whole K-pop thing.
Yeah.
And it's just not just K-pop. It's when the whole music video thing really, you know, when MTV came out and they actually played music videos.
I think I figured out what's going on with JoJo. Tex, are you streaming this to somebody else's channel?
No.
Okay, then never mind. I don't, because I was looking at
it's streaming to mine.
That's what's going on.
That's what it is.
Yeah, she's on Breezy's channel. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's all it is. That's why she can't. Okay. She's on Breezy's channel, not. You're not on the sacred channel, JoJo.
Yeah, you're on the substitute channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but the whole thing about the videos and I noticed this back when I was a dumbass kid watching this stuff.
You're still a dumbass adult, so it still works.
Well, that's true. But to me, that's when I really, really noticed subliminal stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were almost blatant with it. I think they were blatant with it. To the point to where they told you they were doing it basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it still worked.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So to carry the conversation a little bit further, that's the whole point, right? Is if you can't just necessarily hypnotize somebody into doing something, but you can create You can hypnotize them into believing a worldview or creating a worldview
Scenario, right.
a scenario that would allow them or force them to take those actions. The same way, that's what is happening writ large. They keep you in a fear state, and they frame your reality in such a way that you're driven in that direction. So this is the only option, right? We have to vote this way. We have to bomb these people. We have to make certain that we're taxed this way. We can't have there's no conversation about having any other options. There's only these two things. It's about creating a world that forces you to continue down a particular road in a way that's already breaking up. While social media, and again, I'm over here saying the algorithms used on this stupid thing and on the laptop and everywhere else is very much designed to manipulate us. At the same time, there have been pushes where it's like, no, hold on, they can't control everything, right? They can't. No, they can't. They're not that good. They're not that good. Don't black pill, Tex. Don't take the black pill. We have seen that there are limits, and the fact is, we can talk. They don't have the fine control that I think one of the things about a lot of conspiracy theories is this idea of fine control and control of totality. If they had that, we wouldn't know it, right? The fact that we can talk about it is they have to create heat sinks in order to control us, right? So once you understand, oh, hold on, we can move. There is an operation that we can actually grassroots our way, maybe not out of it entirely, but we can actually start fighting back. We may never understand the full truth of, how Godzilla is secretly, causing mayhem. But maybe we can do some other things. Maybe we can fight against this and just not be led around by the nose. We just have to. But again, the first step is just knowing that that's the thing. A lot of people aren't ever going to reject that. They're going to want to just whatever the accepted norm is. That's what they're going to do.
Right.
But it doesn't take that many people to change what the norm is. See, that's the dirty secret. If you get 10% of any population to fight hard enough, they can change the direction of an entire society. It doesn't matter what it is, good or bad. Once you get 10% of people saying something, standing up for a thing, they can change an entire, the other 90%. Because again, if the vast majority are going to be NPCs anyway and just do whatever the norm is, if you make them believe that you're the norm, then they'll follow it anyway. So it's not it's by far not hopeless at all. In fact, it is probably the overall arc of human history is that things rise and they fall. Empires, we're at an inflection point every 250, it's the commentary, every 250 years empires, they say collapse. They don't collapse, they change, right? It's the cycle. It's like, okay, we've hit that sort of 250-year-ish mark. We have to redefine what we are. We're in one of those inflection points. We get to make that decision. What do we want to be? You got people who are pulling all the strings saying we're going to go one way. We can make the choice to go the other way. I'm not saying it's not harder. I'm not saying that it's going to be that we get to blow up the Death Star and then dance with some Ewoks. I'm just saying that it's a fight that can be won so long as we understand that the fight even exists.
Right.
Well, it's the basis of a resistance.
Yeah. I think that once that gets known amongst and starts trampling the imperialists, so to speak, then they just unplug our mass communications, and then we're back down to newspapers. You know what I mean? You don't know nothing about nothing, and everybody's separated up, other than being pen pals, because with the internet, that's the only thing that we really got going for us in order to be, a colonized ideology, right? After that, you take that away from us, And who's that given to us by? You know, the upper echelon. So if they were to put us back into the Stone Age as far as communication is concerned, then, you know, game over. You know, the only thing that you're going to know about is what's been fed to you. You know,
and that's what the 15-minute cities are all about, right? Again, the Agenda 2030, the 15-minute
Right.
cities, they're trying to create these little concentration camps. Straight up, that's what they are, where we police ourselves. Again, if you've never seen that clip from My Dinner with Andre that's been out there for a while, go watch it. That's exactly what they're talking about. But the 15-minute cities are like the final brick in that wall of you don't get to leave unless you're allowed to. And then once that happens, they're gonna, again, if they can control your communication. It's again, this is why the big EV mandate exists. It's not because they care about the environment. They don't. It is about creating cars that they can completely control. Where it's like, no, your carbon credits are too high. You can't drive to the next town, right? Like, will Leonardo DiCaprio ever stop using, a personal jet? No. Will the politicians ever not have the really big cars and eat the steaks? No. But you're the problem. So you have to stay in this 15-minute city, and you can only leave to go visit grandma if you've built up the credits and we say that you can go. This stuff's already being implemented in Europe. It's already happening. Everyone's like, oh, that's, again, one of the reasons to say the reason they created the term conspiracy theory was to dismiss people. It's already happening. It's already been spoken about in public. That's my point. The worst things happen in public. But all they have to do is just not talk about it. It isn't James Bond. It's literally happening in broad daylight. And it will not click for most people because it's going to happen slowly enough that it'll just happen like, well, this is just the way it is. Unless we fight back. I'm white-pilled on all of this. I mean, I'm the one saying that we're probably way closer to the end than people would like that to be. But I'm like, no, we can fight. This is not a predetermined ending per se. They don't have the fine control that people think they do. They never have, and they never will.
I absolutely agree with Mayhem here. The electric car was also invented to keep us from traveling long distances, which keeps us in the 15-minute cities, which accomplishes their goal.
Yeah. I'll go with that.
Yep.
I do not, and I think honestly, I think the first state to fall to this, and we can already see it happening, is California.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're blatantly doing it. I mean, they're talking about, not accepting. I don't think it ever happened. That being said, if California isolates itself to where they won't allow fossil fuel vehicles in the state, to even transport, necessary supplies, they might as well just put a fence around it. I mean,
well,
it's by design.
I'll do you one better. Tokyo.
Yeah.
Right. So Tokyo is pretty much at that exact point. Like you literally don't even have to come off your 40th story building to walk over to another building. They have bridges. So it's like, oh no, you don't need to worry about that. Nah, don't even worry about going outside of Tokyo. Everything in it's here. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And before
they have
it,
porn and vending machines.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
Well, it's if you've ever seen
panties in vending machines. I mean, come on.
Dude, I got a Monica type Tokyo airplane tickets.
Yeah, there you go. It's like if you've ever, again, I grew up with the comics, and I do love the Stallone version. But if you've ever seen Dredd,
Judge Dredd,
Judge Dredd. But if you've ever seen Dredd was actually a really, really good version of that. of actually describing what a mega block is. We're building the mega blocks from Judge Dredd, where essentially you have whole cities in one building, and in that building you've got your medical stations, you've got your shops, you got your schools, you got your living quarters. That's what a mega block was. It was an entire city in one building, and that's the basic premise of Judge Dredd, is that in Mega City 1, which is this big walled city, you have these mega blocks where people are living in essentially their own cities within a city, and they're essentially cut off, right? And they're essentially all cut off from the rest of the city if they want to. The entire premise of the movie Dredd, which is a great adaptation, by the way, there's this drug lord that's basically running this entire mega city block.
Yeah, Peachtree Street, or Peachtree or whatever.
Yeah, and she runs it. It's her own little fiefdom, and because again, there aren't really the judges enough to go through, and the ones that do exist, many of them are corrupt. But the entire point is that's a microcosm of what we're talking about with these 15-minute cities, where you have these very small, very controlled cities where they have more access to control your freedom of movement, and then the information that you receive. We can fight this. It's not a predetermined conclusion. So the main thing about this, again, since we're talking about psyops, and I know we're coming to the hour here,
we don't have to stop.
I do. I gotta go. I haven't slept in 2 days, dude. I gotta be functional. I got people's mortgages to do correctly.
It's not my problem you hadn't slept all weekend. Partying.
No. So actually, this is a great look. We don't talk about that on air text. The simple fact of the matter is this, and I'm about to show exactly how we can do this. I'm white-pilled because once you just know that this is a thing, you can fight it. Once you understand that really their power is an illusion, that their power they are literally Oz. It's all an illusion. And if you just stand up and you just say no, they will back down because they don't have anything. They can't really force it on you. It has to be by coercion, because at least in this one country right here, turning the military on the citizens is going to be a hard pull.
Right.
Not an impossible pull. Not impossible by any stretch. We have history on that. But it's hard. They have to do it by coercion. For overt force will cause backlash. We've already seen it. The more you use overt force, the more you get resistance. It has to be by coercion. All we got to do is say no. All we got to do is push the button like I'm about to do right now. You can fight. Every single person watching this, maybe not text, but every other not Donnie, but every other person in this has the power to fight back by doing one simple thing. And sometimes it's just as simple as pushing a button.
So, and I know we've talked about this whole, and it's almost an encompassing thing, right? I want to go to Breezy first. What do you see as the end game here?
Well, man, I'm you know me, I'm kind of complicated, but that Reddit said corporations. I think that I think it all begins in educational programming, which I tell my kid all the time and my other kids. It's you don't go there, you don't go to college or to school to learn about how the tax system works or how to manage or finance your bills, or it's to make sure that you're coded into being there for 8 hours a day, showing up, having good attendance, right? Doing what
Right.
you're told, answering the questions that you or answering questions you've been given answers to before. So it's programming, right? So I think it turns people into bots. You know what I mean? And for corporations and for um, other designated functions of society. So, because like Jason, am I right? Like he was saying, I think, you know, I'm not disagreeing, but about just turning it off or switching it off. I think if it does, you're plugged into so many facets in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's gotten to a point where they've been dogging on us for at every angle, because this ain't nothing new. Like the MK Ultra and all that.
Right.
That's nothing new. It's either mentally coerced or you're whipped into it. You know what I mean? Like a mule horse is only going to be a mule horse, and plow your field because that's all it knows. That's just what it wakes up to because it's been trained since it's been trained. So from every asset, we got media telling us one thing, we got radio telling us another, and not even to get into, I guess what would be the conspiracy of it all now, but well, in the future will be a known commonology just like this, but energy waves and magnetic waves that they're putting into, you know, uh, out there through towers and stuff, that and as long also with the um, uh, chemtrails and such, they put enough lithium in the air, and then before you know it, everyone's chill, and so they're affecting you on every level, whether it's frequency, whether it's audio, visual, whole 9 yards. So I think the end game on it is really just to make same thing that's always been is to make the rich richer and the poor poorer and keep you in your position and just, shut up and dance while we make our money off of it. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but that's breezy. Like I buy all that stuff. So
I wish Jason would have given me a little heads up that I need to see you and just blink out.
hey, I'm hit the button.
Well, damn.
But I'm here for you, Tex. I got you, bro.
So now that he's gone, I was going to talk to you about this the other night, but we didn't get around to it.
Okay.
And, when we were having the whole flat Earth and hollow Earth discussion,
Mm-hmm.
what do we see? I mean, okay, coming from a flat Earth perspective, okay, what? Because I'm kind of lost in how the whole sunset, sunrise, moon, all that kind of stuff works.
Right.
On that, on it's supposed to work on in that design.
Correct.
Because wouldn't we be constantly light?
No, not necessarily. So, shifting gears on that. So, like, literally, where I'm at my house, my sun rises literally right here, and it goes from here, and it goes straight around that way, and it then it disappears around that way. So if you look at an actual flat Earth map, the sun just rotates. Okay, say my bear's the center of the Arctic, right? And the Antarctic is the ice wall. The sun rotates around it, and then it spreads out through the seasons. It gets further and further away or closer and closer in. That's why you have the 24-hour sunrise in the Arctic and the 24-hour sunrise in the Antarctic, where the sun doesn't set. So, and then the moon follows its trajectory. So think about it like a yin and yang sign, right? You know, so, and that's a lot of people tie those two together, you know. But yeah, my sun doesn't. It never goes up and over. You know, it comes and it flies by me. You know, it's just, you know.
And why does it look like it's overhead then?
Yeah, no, I mean, it'd be overhead like over there, but never, you know, directly above me. It'll be off to a degree, but say if it's kind of like the same thing if you ever standing on like train tracks, you know, you're gonna see the train come in small, and then as it passes you, it's gonna get big, and then as it goes further away, it's gonna go smaller and smaller. You know, until it's out of sight. You know, that's how they propose it. I mean, that's how I see it. When it comes to the moon, so okay, yeah, another one of them is the sun and the moon are more local instead of being, you know, way out in outer space, 93 million miles away or whatever the sun is. Because if you ever have, you know, like storm clouds, right? And you'll see the sun come through it, and you'll see the beams cast in different directions. If you put like tissue paper and you put a flashlight on it, the closer it is, you'll see those beams cast, and the further you pull away from it, you'll see them all being a straight gaze. So a lot of people argue that that's the proof that it's a local illumination opposed to, you know, a star that's, you know, billions of miles away. Now I'm just saying that's all theory. I mean, because, you know, like I said on the last one, it's who freaking knows. But if the math ain't, you know, kind of like what Jason was saying, if math ain't mathing, and, you know, then you start to look in other day. Once you realize you're being fooled by one person,
right?
And especially if it's your space agency that supposedly knows all about it, and you're starting to see holes in their Swiss cheese, then you trust it less and less, and it deters you to other spots.
Gotcha.
You know, yeah.
I don't know. It's something that I've tried to look into. I tried to give it a chance, and I just went, it hurts.
Yeah. No, it is. Yeah. No, it really is. You can. I'll start sending you. I don't know if you. I know you. Well, I think you don't have a Facebook, but I can send you certain reels. But there's a lot of them that I send Monica, and she's like, "Get the fuck out of here."
Because I tried to watch. And when I say I tried, I really, really tried, and I made it through most of it. That documentary is what they called it, that the Flat Earth Society put out or whatever a few years ago.
Yeah, don't.
That was. I'm like, why did you? Because it had the guy that was supposedly the father of Flat Earth, you know, and the chick that he eventually got involved with. And I'm like, and then they got out there on their boat, and they had the target, and they had the laser,
Yeah.
and this experiment failed miserably.
Yeah. They
And I'm like,
they do this stuff.
why did you even put that in the documentary? Why would you do that? You just proved yourself wrong.
Right. Because they're not taking into that. There's so much of that where it's like, so if you were to do a water on water thing, a level, because they've done it on the Nile and they've done it on the Amazon, which are particular, or suggested topical flat pieces, right? But the ocean has giant freaking waves, you know what I mean? So, you can go 20 feet out in the ocean and realize that, your brother that's 20 foot out there is, 4 feet lower than you are, and it's going to fluctuate, you know what I mean? So, yeah, but they have done them on flat rivers and gone miles and miles apart. I think one of them was 8 miles, which they should have been like 3 feet under the curve or something like that. Don't quote me on my math, but and found it to be true. And also when they were gauging so when they were gauging rivers back in the Gap, they would do it with boats with rope systems, and they would go, a mile apart and stretch the rope tight. Well, if there was a curvature in the earth, then the middle of the rope would have been wet because it would have been going, they would have been on each side of the curve, So there are a few of those, but have I done it myself? No.
So why haven't they been able to? Because the moon is 3,000 miles away or something like that.
Quarter of a million, 250,000. Yeah.
In flat Earth.
No, in flat Earth, no, it's local. It's under the
firmament. Yeah, it's like 3,000 miles or something like that.
Yeah, that's why we can like zoom in on it with a Nokia P1000 and see pretty much everything on that thing. Yeah.
So how come they haven't done any laser bounce experiments off the moon?
Well, in flat Earth theory, the moon, especially if you go biblically, which is what most of the flat earthers are, it's just an illuminary. It's an illumination, right? And the stars are lesser luminaries. This goes into like the Book of Enoch. This goes into Genesis, but in my concept, from whatever, the things that I've seen and what I've come to understand, which I don't know, but it's more of a plasma thing, because early in history they took out the ethers, right? The ether of the earth, and so if you pass magnetics upon ethers, depending on which gas it is, you get literally sunrise to sunset. You'll get that blue, purplish, then it turns into a violet, into a white, or yellow, then white, then it'll go back down the chamber. So it's more of a magnetic plasma versus ether type of a thing. So you kind of think of it like a plasma ball, right? That's basically the way I look at it. Now, why the moon has like the craters and all that stuff on it, that puzzles me a lot. But a lot of those craters, another thing that puzzles me is the craters on the moon we can see from Earth, right? So if the moon is always facing us in the same direction, and we're seeing craters on it, think of it like a gun target right? If we're standing in between that and whatever is hitting the moon, why isn't it hitting us in our back? You know what I mean? Like if you have a gun target and you're shooting at a, you know, a significantly smaller target than the object that's in front of it, then how are you hitting it? That's fine, Rocky and Roy. I don't mind. I do not mind at all.
So
And that brings another question. Why aren't any of those freaking craters sides, you know, like side swipes, right? Like if a meteor comes in and say this is the moon, meteor comes in and takes a side swipe out of it, we don't have any of those, and we don't have them on Earth either. It would look like, remember the 1978 Superman, when the ship hit and it hit and made a big skid,
right.
you know, all the way down it. None of those exist.
Well, in every movie that you've ever seen, any meteor that hits, you know, has a you know, a skid, you know,
Right. Yeah.
leading up to the main crater.
Right. Yeah. But you know, yeah, like
But you don't, yeah. So if that was the case, like the meteor in the meteor crater in Arizona, Utah,
oh yeah.
there would be a canyon leading up to that.
Right. Yeah. It would be more like a, you know, like a big piece with a point. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Huh.
So, you know, so some of those things are partial to the reasons why I venture towards that side. And then Monica hit me. Me and Monica were talking about that, and she hit me with because physics dictates that that the impact creates the solid crater, right? But, and I looked into it afterwards, but if that's only if the material that actually hit the surface of given planet or moon is less dense than the actual surface that it strikes. So, but think about it, you know, like, okay, I'll give it that, but that means that every single freaking thing that's hit the moon or hit the earth has been just so happens to be more dense than the surface of that structure. So, you know, and then you're talking,
it's no different than, say, when a plane crashes. You know, it doesn't
right.
It doesn't just, you know,
right.
You know, and even when the, you know, I hate talking about this because it was horrible, but when the space shuttle broke up, you know, and even when they come into land, anything when they come into land, it comes in the atmosphere, and they have to enter the atmosphere at an angle, a particular angle, or they'll bounce off of it. You know, so yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there, and I don't care which camp you're in. The math don't math,
right?
You know,
yeah, it'd have to be coming directly straight down to make a perfect 360-degree cavernous. You know,
yeah, it would, yeah, with no trail behind it. You know,
a little twist is easy. What if the moon has sinkholes because of its formation? It could be. I mean, so when you're talking to Breezy, you're talking to somebody who used to be I went from a non-believer in the moon landings to the moon was an artificial spacecraft, and to the moon doesn't exist kind of thing. So I have tons of ideologies on all that. There's a weird thing about the moon also. The out of all of the craters in the moon, they only go to a certain depth. Craters in the Earth and craters in other planets, they have different depths, and some of them are way deeper than others. But the moon itself only has, it basically has like a sink point where nothing gets past it.
Well, I wondered why every time something hits the moon, we hear that big gong go off.
Yeah, and the big dong. Yeah, the 2-hour dong that NASA put on that thing. Put the Hawk 2 on that thing. I'll tell you what. Yeah. No, but there's a bunch of unanswered weird stuff, and I'm not saying that my theory or anything is stamped in gold, but
I just think it's interesting to talk about. I mean, but you know me, I'm not going to sit here and shoot anybody's theory down, because it's just interesting to me to discuss different stuff, and different theories. I don't care. I could sit down and have a conversation with a Satanist. I mean, it wouldn't bother me. I mean, I'm because I got the mindset of, hey, if you want to go to hell, you go to hell. I mean,
that's that's your thing, man. Do your thing. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you how to not to, but it's your decision if you want to,
Yeah, exactly.
You want to take the blue or the red pill. So
another weird one to me is if you look at compasses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're on the southern hemisphere, right? Say you're close to Antarctica, instead of pointing in a certain direction, your compass should be pointing up. That's the North Pole, like it shouldn't be like this way, that way. But if you look on a flat Earth map, like, so say the top of my beer is or the Arctic, North Pole, and I have a compass, it's going to look for it everywhere it goes, it's going to keep going in the same direction. It's not going to go up or down. Now, what I would like to see is,
well, to have a needle point up or down, you'd have to have a 3-dimensional compass.
Right, exactly. But we never have, and we've been using compasses for how many hundreds of years?
Yeah, and evidently they do work. So.
Yeah, right. And
but so do sundials.
Yeah, same sundials, exactly. Now, what I would like to see now, if they were to shut me up for forever and ever, and I would be completely fine with that, and I'd actually be like, thank you, because now I don't have to worry about it anymore. If you're on the International Space Station, anybody, I don't know if y'all are in the chat who are on the International Space Station, but take a complete, non-cutting and zoom in on North America and show me somebody standing upward, zoom in on the equator and show somebody from the top of their head, because that's where they would be, and then zoom in on Australia and show me somebody standing upside down. If you can do that, then case closed. It's a globe. It's all over with. Done with it. And they could have settled that, easily, but yet they have not.
I don't know. A lot of strange stuff to chew on, that's for sure.
Well, we live in a strange world, Tex. You know we that, do. Man.
We do.
We got more questions than answers.
Red mentions the was it Red or who mentioned the pole shift? But dwarf. You know, and hey, dwarf, you need to freaking email me so we can schedule something out to go over that footage. Because I want to go over it with you privately before we bring it up. Because I got questions.
Not really, Freaky, because we got Google, Google Maps or Google Globe or whatever.
Yeah, Google Earth, yeah.
Or Google Earth, yeah. So, and plus, if we can see the ISS from Earth, which everyone goes, oh, look, there's the ISS going over.
Right.
And if we can see them, they can see us, and how much more of the more technology that they have than we do.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know. All right. So we got 3 seconds, 2 seconds. I'm doing this for you. Oh, we missed it. Shit. Okay. We got to wait another minute.
Another 5 minutes.
Damn it.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of different stuff out there that I'm like, this stuff, because I've looked at the stuff about the moon landing, and I think we went to the moon. Okay. But I don't think we got there the way they say we got there.
See, I could.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we had help. I really, really do, because there's a lot of stuff about that doesn't add up.
Yeah.
The pressure thing, the vacuum thing doesn't bother me, because you only have to account and design stuff for, a certain amount. It's not like going into water where it constantly changes.
Right. Yeah, space should be a constant, Once you're out of the upper atmosphere, then it should be the same as here in between the moon as in between Jupiter and its moons, Yeah. Because it's a vacuum, it's not pressure built, like the ocean.
Right.
Yeah.
Dwarf says Stanley Kubrick took us to the moon.
I think so. And I think we talked about it offline. Because if you look at the moon landing sites where they're all on the spots that are pointed directly towards the Earth, right? And like right in that center little mass where it looks like it's blown up like a balloon when you're a kid,
Right.
the navel of the balloon, right? So if that was the case, then all those pieces where you see the edge of the moon and it's called Earthrise.
Mm-hmm.
Earthrise would never exist because you'd be looking straight up at the Earth. So Earth would have been, straight up here and never on the horizon of the moon, if that's where they landed, and it could be that they didn't land in that spot and they could be BSing about that whole part. Fine. But if it is where they said it was, then we would have been high noon, so to speak, instead of sunrise or sundown.
Right. Mayhem says, okay, I see that, but what about those that say we were told by beings on the dark side not to come back?
That's another weird one.
Yeah.
And then you look at when they switched over to it was the medical channel, and they're like, we got Santa Claus on our tail, and people go, oh, well, it was Christmas. They were just BSing. Well, why would you switch over to the medical, to where it's not public?
Oh, you think it was a code word?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, me and you've talked about it. I think it's look at this hand while this hand's, oh, well, we'll give them you know, alien subjects to talk about other than, you know, whether or not we went. You know what I mean?
Right.
Rock and Roy says, "What did flat earthers say about gravity?"
Well,
That's
before that, Twisted is wanting your thoughts on simulation, and then we'll get to Roy.
I think simulation is very possible. I think
Not Christina.
Parallel universes are also very possible. I don't kick them out of bed. I'll put it that way. Because you know, I don't know. I've talked to many people about it, and I was actually talking to my buddy earlier tonight or earlier this evening, and talking about times that we should have died, and pretty much, you know, should have freaking died, and then just didn't. And so, like, did we hop from one programming to another, from one dimension to another? You know, as far as who brought it up? Who brought up the
Roy?
Yeah, Roy.
Gravity?
Gravity, yeah. So gravity is basically just density. Like, okay, if the apple fell off you know, if Newton saw the apple fall off the tree and then land in a puddle of water, then gravity's not strong enough to bring that apple to the bottom of its core. It stops at a certain density. That's how flat earthers go with it. Same with if all the water is dragged to the, you know, the core of the ocean, then why didn't it pull dew from a plant, you know, in the morning? It's so strong that it holds all the oceans together, but can't, you know, pull a drop of dew off of a plant. I don't know. But yeah, man, that's
No, that's where they relate. That's where they bring in the whole mass relationship.
Yeah,
A drop of water is not, you know, enough. But that, I don't know. To me, that shouldn't matter, because if that's the case, and gravity is a constant, and you can drop two things and they hit the ground together, and that's the proof of gravity,
right?
Then it should have the same pull. Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
Maybe I need to get old McGrath Tyson on here and have him explain stuff.
Yeah, and we were talking about that.
Yes, rock and roll. Fat people stick to the ground better.
I do. And when I fall harder than I did when I was a kid.
Yeah, I know why.
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, like I was saying on the last one with the merry-go-round theory, you know, like when you're in the center of the merry-go-round, you know, you're cool. But when you're on the edge, you're hanging on for dear life, not wanting to break a bone flying off of that thing. But so shouldn't people on the equator be lighter than people in the north or the southern poles? You know, wouldn't you lose weight because you're not spinning at 1,000, you know, miles an hour? just food for thought, man. I mean, that's all it really is.
There's a lot of stuff out there that I'm not smart enough to figure out. I'm just saying.
No, you and me both, Tex.
And when it comes down to it, flat globe, hollow, triangle, square, does it matter?
Right? Yeah.
We're stuck on it regardless.
Yeah, and that does bring in a big thing. It's you know, in this world, you know, what we're put here for spiritually, you know, or whatever people may think. But is it the distraction, the great distraction that keeps you from, instead of helping your fellow man, you're sitting there going, flat earth.
Yeah.
Like what else can I think?
Flat earth, aliens, and Bigfoot.
Right, yeah. instead of just living your life, you're like, shut up, kid. Like, about flat earth.
I'm too worried. I can't help you. I'm too worried about trying to figure out if Canada's going to be the 51st state or not.
Exactly. Yeah. Go to bed and shut up.
Yeah.
I got bigger things on the chalkboard.
All right. 15 seconds. 15 seconds. All right. We'll holler at y'all later. Y'all be careful. And
one love.
Yeah. And we'll see y'all tomorrow with CD Squatcher and animal mutilations. Looking forward to that one.
This is the future. Evolution. This is the future. Evolution.